potent advice, and inspiration from real self-made millionaires. Welcome to The Eventual Millionaire with your host, Jaime Masters.
Welcome to Eventual Millionaire. I'm Jaime Masters, and I am so excited to do another kind of different show. Scott Barlow was in my mastermind group also, and you guys loved it so much. Even though we've already sold out the next group of the mastermind, I required him to come back on the show so that way I could introduce. He just had a huge celebration, so we're going to talk about that in just a second. But happentoyourcareer.com is Scott's website. He's freaking amazing with him and his wife, Alyssa, in business. Thank you so much for squeezing me in today, Scott, before your amazing trip to Europe so we could have you on the show.
Yeah, I'm glad that it worked out. And thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So Scott just had an amazing win in his business. And I was like, how come I haven't asked you to come on the show yet? Literally yesterday or the day before, I was like, hey,
yeah.
Can you come on the show now?
By the way.
So thank you. Really appreciate it. And tell us what happentoyourcareer.com is so everybody has an idea on what the heck you actually do.
Yeah, absolutely. Really what we do is we help people take control of their life. So we're often helping very high performing professionals go from where they're at to where they actually want to be. And we help them make really difficult career changes. So that's like, hey, I am a lawyer, but I really want to be a museum curator. Or, hey, I'm an accountant, but I really want to start this business and get it up and running and get my first customers. So we help people make those types of career changes.
Which is insane because I remember how difficult it was for me in that moment of crap. I'm successful, but I don't know what I should move into. So it's funny because we've talked about this a lot. I actually send all the starter people because you also talk about, is it a business? And you help people with business side too. So I send all my starters to you because we don't have any really start kind of stuff anymore. So tell us about what you do for people transitioning to business because that's tough.
It is tough. It's incredibly difficult. And a lot of the people that we're working with are their first business, which is even more difficult if you've never run a business before. So we're helping them get incredibly clear on what type of business it is that they want to run in the first place. And then going and getting very, very clear on who they're helping and what problems are they solving, and then getting their taking all the way through to getting their first customers. So that's a ton of fun. It's not an easy process, and we absolutely love it.
So, Anne, tell us about your win because you posted in the group.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. So a year ago, yesterday or the day before, I can't quite remember, was my last official day of my job. So I was an HR director working for a Fortune 500 company. It was a great job. Absolutely loved it. They were incredibly good to me, but it wasn't what I wanted to do forever. So marked the 1 year from being in job to entrepreneur. And then at the same time, we had our largest month ever, exact on the same day. Like at 8 p.m., the last of the revenue came in and and blew it out of the way. So we ended up at about $30,000, crossed that $30,000 mark for the first time in our business in a month. And that was a huge milestone for us. So we were celebrating.
Yeah.
I know, it's so exciting. And you were a huge part of that too, because even before Six Figure Mastermind, I remember when you did the first group of hustlers, and then I was involved in that. And that was when I had like 300 people on my email list or something like that. And I don't know, $500 of revenue a month. And that was only like 2 years ago.
See, okay, me and Joelle were reminiscing this morning, by the way, because you and Joey, who I just had on the show, were in Hustlers at the same time, making about $500 a month, by the way, which is insane to see in 2 years how much you guys have changed. And you guys are friends now too, which is awesome. Yeah. Okay, so what do you think? So everybody's like, great, thanks, awesome for them. I have to buy, Hustlers isn't even on right now. Darn it, right? So tell me what your most pivotal moments this year, because you were already on a great trajectory. Don't get me wrong, you're a high achiever also. But what were those things that really made all the difference in the world in the last year?
You know, I think the biggest thing, because I think yesterday about where we were at, because we started the year at like right around $8,000 in revenue. So we were like barely at that 6-figure mark, right? And going from there, we were doing so many different things. Jaime, I remember getting on a short call with you and you saying, okay, great. You maybe can do this, but here's what my perception is. If you focus on one of these things and take it so much further, then you're going to be able to actually hit your goals versus probably feeling like you're running around with the chicken, like, the whole chicken thing. And I didn't want to do the chicken thing anymore. So we actually, even though we were profitable and selling a number of different programs, we made the really, really difficult decision with your help to pare back and choose one of them. And then, not so coincidentally, the timing worked out where came down to Austin and got to meet a bunch of your friends, and they all had really, it's like taking a red pen to our business and like crossing out all the other stuff, and gave us really, really difficult feedback, which we needed to hear. And we decided, hey, let's focus in on this one program. Let's make a really compelling offer. Let's make this the best in the world. And then that's what happened. And then that we did a $20,000 launch immediately after that, like less than 30 days after that. We put an entirely new program together, or new version, and voila.
See, it's so hard when you're an overachiever and you know how much you can accomplish, especially because you were working a 40-hour, plus week job. You have kids, you have a beautiful wife that's in business with you, and you were doing your your online side business at the same time. So you're like, I can do everything. I'm awesome. I wake up at 5 a.m. I know. Yeah. So, and that's the thing as a coach, I'm like, I know you can do anything. It'll just be way faster. Like you could do all three. You totally could. It just, you'd see little incremental changes on all three instead of trying to have the exponential side, which is what you did. So how did you take that feedback? Not from me, but especially I remember after the retreat, you were like, my mind hurts, right? Like, because the decisions that you have to make, that's difficult sometimes. So how did you actually accept that and not just be like, I think I know my audience better than you guys? How did you accept that and actually make the changes? Because you're a fast implementer. It's insane.
It was incredibly difficult because we had people that wanted to pay us money for the other things. So we literally had to say no to thousands of dollars worth of cash and say, I can't. And that was probably one of the biggest and hardest things in the first place. And just turn that down, not really on blind faith, but it felt a little bit like that at the time. So then from there, it cleared up so much time. I mean, that was the biggest thing. I went from spreading myself, and then we were starting to amass a small team of contractors and everything like that were helping us out. And then of course, Alyssa is a huge part of this business. We haven't even talked about my wife, Alyssa, but she's been here since the beginning, both on support side, and she got dragged into it. And now she's a huge part of every aspect of it. So, we made that decision and turned down all the cash. And then that freed up our time by threefold because we were spreading ourselves among 3 different programs. So all of a sudden we had all this time to do something amazing and support our people in a different way, do a launch in a completely different way that we'd never done before. And we saw the results. I mean, we sold $20,000 at that particular time. And that's the first time I'd ever done anything like that before.
So you're listening to people going like, you guys do know what you're talking about, right? Like, okay, you do know. All right, I'll trust you. Yeah. It's so hard.
Well, and the hard part is too, like even more, I needed you and everybody else to tell me that because even though that's what I've done, like I used to help people start businesses as a job at one point. I worked for a franchise company and, way back when I helped people like 100+ people start businesses before and make them profitable. But for some reason I couldn't see that in myself. Even though we'd get done with a coaching conversation and say, hey, you need to free up your time. You need to focus on this one thing. So
like, I've read those books, right? Like I know this stuff.
I know that.
I talked to a coach yesterday that I might hire, and he said the exact same thing. I'm like, I know, I do this so much for other people. If I could just clone myself and have it look at my business, because I feel like when you're in it, you just can't see the forest for the trees, unfortunately. Thankfully, you have your beautiful wife, Alyssa, also. And this is why I love Scott and Alyssa. Okay. So Scott gave me permission to tell Alyssa when he needs to be slapped. I don't think that ever actually happened, but I love the fact that you guys are working. Oh, she was. Oh, yes. Right. But that's, I think, so important because it's really difficult to find people that are open to as much feedback as you are. So let's talk really quickly, though, about your fast implementation, because I feel like this is a huge reason why you are successful in anything that you do. I see your brain. You're like, and it's done, Jaime. Right. So tell me how to cultivate that.
Honestly, for me, and it works a little bit different for everybody, but for me, the way that it works is I respond really well to public pressure. So that's why, that's one of the reasons why it's like, Jaime, okay, Send me an email if I'm not doing my stuff, if I'm not going through my action items, and tell Alyssa to slap me. That type of stuff works for me because I know that if I put myself out there in the public and tell people that I am going to do something, then I feel like I have to do it. And so that can be either good or bad, I suppose. But in this case, I really wanted to be able to leverage that. So having you commit me to different action items every step of the way was phenomenal. I don't think it would have happened without it because I know myself well enough to realize that was a major portion of it.
So it's so important to know yourself. And this is what you're talking about. This is what you have a new guide all about it, knowing your strengths and leveling up those pieces, whether you're finding a new career or starting a business, 1,000 times huge. So how did you guys figure out what your strengths are? Because I remember some of the coaching calls going, Scott, I know you're good at 5 things, but we really need to pare that down and have other people for different pieces because you have coaches working for you now. You're not the only coach anymore. So how did you figure out the sweet spot of what your strengths are?
For me, it's been like a 10-year process, but the short version of it is
we got give us a.
Yeah. The really short version of it is that gone through and paid attention to everything that I love doing. So I literally have grids where it's like I've got a grid of, hey, here's what I'm good at, and here's also what I absolutely love doing in the top right corner, and then also at the same time, there's what I'm good at, and then also what I love. And I try and spend as much of my time as possible in those things where it overlaps that I both absolutely love and happen to be great at the same time. And there's lots of things that I'm good at in my business and I enjoy a little bit, but it doesn't necessarily energize me as I'm going on and moving on to the next thing. It's more draining. So those types of things can be done by other people that do get energy from that. So
how do you figure that out though? Because that's the thing. People are like, that's awesome that you created the list. But when I'm sitting down with a piece of paper, how the heck do I figure out those pieces?
You have to suspend judgment at the beginning. So step one, you have to be able to take what you know about yourself. One of the really easy ways is be able to go back over in a quantifiable method. So you go back to all your past jobs, businesses, whatever projects, anything else along those lines, and then you can start to figure out, hey, here's what I was good at, even if I hated the job. Here's what I was great at in that particular area, or here's what I absolutely loved. And then you start to notice themes along those lines. And then you can take that and organize it and prioritize it and say, hey, I was great at all these different things, or was at least above average in all these different things. And I loved some of these different things, but where the crossover is where you have both. And then even the upper echelon of that. So there's a book back there on the shelf someplace. What is it called? The one by, I think it's Perry Marshall. Have you read that one?
I don't know.
It's 80/20 sales and marketing.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so I love the main concept of the entire book. If you don't read it, which I would recommend reading it, is don't just take the top 20%. Take the top 20% of the 20%. So we do the exact same thing for strengths, whether it's for myself or for anybody else that we're working with, and we help them take what is that top 4% essentially and focus in that area. Because it's great that you can knock it out of the park with Excel. It's maybe even great that you kind of enjoy it. But is that the best thing for you to be doing? And where, is that in that top 4%? So things like video editing are there for me. I'm a pretty good video editor. I love doing it, but I should not be spending my time that way.
1,000 times no. And it's so funny when I went on Ryan Moran's Freedom Fastlane, he asked me to help people. How do we go from 1 million to 10? And I interviewed personally, they didn't go live, but I interviewed a bunch of my friends that are millionaires that I've interviewed, and they said strengths, like knowing your strengths. So what I love is you're going, okay, so you need to know your strengths in general at first, and then you refine and you refine and you refine and you refine and you refine, and you learn more and you refine, and you're like, oh, that sucks. I really don't like doing that. As you start getting to that top sweet spot, which I've just seen you do. You've let go of so much stuff in the last year also.
Oh, man.
Which is insane because you were the guy doing so many pieces at the beginning. So how do you do that? Like, how can you train somebody else, find the right person to train somebody else? I know we have like 5 more minutes left, but still, tell me everything you know about letting go those certain pieces, because that's where a lot of the growth has come also for you.
I think first thing, you got to have somebody like you, Jaime, telling you that hey, look, it's okay. It's okay to let go. In fact, if you don't let go, one of the things that you kept saying over and over again was, if you don't let go of this, you're not going to be able to get over here. And then you'd like paint the picture over here. And it's like, oh, well, I want to get over there. So I guess I'd better let go. So you've got to have a Jaime.
I love you, Scott. You're awesome.
But then after that, I think it's a case of continual tweaking. It doesn't happen all at once. I would love to be able to say, oh yeah, okay, so we figured out that all the areas that I could let go of was we could hire some coaches, and then we could have somebody else take care of all the podcasts, and then I could hire a blog and content editor, and then we could, go and get somebody to do some of our copywriting for us and all those different pieces, and just like, okay, let's start writing the checks. Awesome. But it doesn't happen that way. It's a case of, okay, which is the biggest priority right now, and which is going to continue to allow us to grow. So we realized with the coaches that removed one of the bottlenecks in my business, which is only I could sell, or only people that came into the funnel could be interacted with for me. So if they could get on a sales call with a coach and that didn't take any of my time whatsoever, and we were still bringing revenue in the door because of that, then that removes that bottleneck. So that becomes a higher priority than maybe like, I don't know, somebody who's doing video editing, like we're just talking about, right?
So you hit the nail on the head, the priority of what is most important for right now. Even though as entrepreneurs, we want to do all of it right this second, because that's who we are.
Now.
All of it done.
Yes.
So because normally people, especially when they have a huge plan like that, would literally go, okay, I need to hire all these people. And it's going to be scary, but that's what we're supposed to do. And then they procrastinate because they're like, because it's way too, exactly, it's way too
I can't
big.
afford that, or I can't,
Exactly.
I don't know how to do that. I'm not sure how I'm going to find the people. I'm not sure how I'm going to, whatever it is. Yeah.
Incremental changes, and nobody wants to hear that. They're like, come on, Jaime. So to wrap up, I want to ask you, and I forgot to give you a heads up on this beforehand, but you've listened to the show before. So I asked the question at the end. Now, it's not a million yet because we're still in the eventual stages, but what's one action I know this week to help the listeners move them forward towards knowing themselves better and hitting over six figures?
I think the single biggest action is give yourself the time and space to figure some of this stuff out. So especially, this is so appropriate because, I'm not sure when this is airing, but we're right on the cusp of the new year, like right at the end of November right now. So taking the time and space to figure out both what you want, and then at the same time, what you're great at, and figuring out where that overlap is, to be able to create the plan and the priorities, because you're not going to be able to do it all, just like we just talked about. What are the most important things you can do to get to that overlap space?
This is what I do with my clients all the time. I know, Scott. I'm so glad you said that. It's also one of those things where people will be like, oh yeah, I know. Or I have my plan, but it includes like 18,000 things. And they're like, it's going to be good. We're going to figure it out as we go. It's going to be awesome. But you actually taking the time, sit down, think about the real thing that you want. If you had to choose, I think that's amazing. So make sure everybody sets this. Oh no, continue.
Yeah, no, to add to that and build on that, the actual action is get that on the calendar right now. Like figure out what can come off the calendar in order to make that space. Alyssa and I are going through this right now. We've had a crazy busy month to be able to hit, 30K plus in that month. And we are doing planning and goal setting and visioning for 2017 and what we want that to look like. And we got 2 sick kids today. I've been sick, whatever else. And we still had to create the time and space in order to make that happen, because otherwise it won't. And then we won't ever be able to, it's just not going to happen unless we do that. So put it on the calendar right now. Go and have a conversation with your spouse, whatever it takes, whoever the vested partners are. Stop doing whatever you're doing and then make it happen.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Scott. You're my brain. There we go. I was going to say, put a time on your calendar, because if they don't right now, they're not going to do it. We are the exact same person. So tell us where we can find more about you, because you have a podcast that everybody should listen to. You have an awesome site. Go.
You can go over to iTunes and you can search Happen to Your Career or HTYC, and then we pop up right away. We've got a couple of podcasts over there, actually, some audio courses for individual pieces like finding your strengths or figuring out what's important to you. Or we've got our main podcast, which is just titled Happen to Your Career. And then you can, of course, go on over to happentoyourcareer.com, and that'll get you to all the pieces of our team, all of our guides, all of our other things. The last thing, if you're really interested in in what we've been talking about, we actually have an 8-day course that guides people through this exact thing, finding your strengths, figuring out where that sweet spot is, and it's called the Figure It Out course. And you can just go to figureitout.co, figureitout.co, and then that'll take you right to it.
That's amazing. And just so everybody knows too, like one of the things that I had to make a decision on probably 2-3 years ago, that I wasn't focusing on the starter side of things, because people were coming to me all the time about starting a business. I even wrote a book that has to do about starting a business. And I realized that my sweet spot is not helping people start, it's helping them grow. So now I just give I go, Scott, here, help all the people that need to start. So if you're in there listening right now and you're like, we don't talk a lot about the beginning stages because that's not my sweet spot, but it's totally Scott's. So make sure you go listen to his podcast, sign up, subscribe, and then, of course, do the course too, because I think so many people need to know that. Thank you so much for coming on today, Scott, and have an amazing trip to Europe, and send me pictures because I will reminisce with you later.
Okay. Pictures will be coming your way. That's a promise.
And if you need help with the planning for next year, you know where to find me. You guys are awesome.
Thank you. Really, really appreciate it, Jamie. You are awesome.
All right. Take care. Have a good day. Bye. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that interview. And if you want to check out more amazing resources, I'm only curating the best of the best. Go check out eventualmillionaire.com. You can take the Eventual Millionaire quiz, figure out where you are in business and what you need right now. Plus, you can look at curated resources specifically for you on the new Start Here page. I'm so excited. Please join us. Please let me know if you need anything at all. I'm here for you. And have a fantastic day. Bye.